Okay, let's talk about the trial of Chicago 7. It's Aaron Sorkin's newest movie. It was supposed to come out in theaters, but because of COVID and all of that, we got it on Netflix, which is probably better just because we can all go watch it at home. Sorkin's sophomore film is what it is. It's about the trial of Chicago 7. It's about these people that were arrested. They got sent to trial for conspiracy, for crossing the states, and for allegedly starting the 1968 riots, basically like right around the Democratic National Convention. Now, if you don't know who Sorkin is, he's a very famous writer. He wrote the show West Wing. He created Newsroom. He wrote Social Network. He also wrote A Few Good Men, and he gave us this iconic line:
"I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!"
And he also wrote and directed Molly's Game, which came out like 3 years ago. It's on Netflix, I think, as of right now. So if you haven't seen that, then maybe go ahead and check that out. His writing is very dialogue heavy. It's very quick, very snappy, very theatrical, which sometimes isn't a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. It really just depends on what's being said or what is happening at the moment. When I saw Molly's Game, I thought it was a fine movie. I could see what Sorkin was doing, but I felt like he went a little bit overboard on direction, editing, and even writing. I felt like a lot of stuff could have been cut. Sorkin can make a pretty good movie. He just has to take things down a notch a little bit, focus on his writing more, and then he'll make something pretty good. And that's exactly what he did with this movie. It features quite a big amount of people. It has Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Cohen, Jeremy Strong, John Carroll Lynch, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Mark Rylance, Frank Langella. It's a lot of people. Now, the thing about having a huge cast like this, especially in a Sorkin movie, is that there will be plenty of times where actors are just kind of in the background, and then there will be other times where those same actors will have their moment to shine. They'll get their big speech. I'd say it's more so common with our bigger stars, with like Eddie Redmayne and Mark Rylance, definitely. They at least have that one scene where it's the monologue and there's the theatrical music and it's just a big speech. It's also when they're shouting a lot too. Whenever these scenes happen in this movie, it feels like it's that Oscar clip that they're gonna show, before they give out the awards to the actor. But this isn't surprising at all because Sorkin wrote theater. He is a theatrical writer, but because Sorkin is just trying to give the facts to this movie with a little bit of his political beliefs along with the characters' political beliefs, sometimes it doesn't really bring out the actual characters or development as much for them. Sometimes these people feel like caricatures instead of real people. But still, I think the cast did a great job. I thought some of the bigger standouts were Rylance, Mateen, Cohen, and Langella. I thought Rylance had the most range in this movie. He had a lot of moments where he's definitely angry. You could feel the anger in his performance, and then he also had a lot of quiet moments. Mateen plays Bobby Seale, who was the leader of the Black Panthers at that time. He was not in the movie too much, but I thought his performance was significant. Cohen plays Abby Hoffman and does a great job. He might have given my favorite performance in the movie. While many of the actors have their moments to shine and, they're loud and their big speeches, Cohen and Jeremy Strong, who plays along with him, they have a bit more quieter moments. Now, I know we've seen Cohen do drama before. He has some show on Netflix where it's pretty dramatic, but I was also just impressed just to see Cohen do something like this. Now, I wouldn't say, from the research I've done, it seems like this is a lot of stuff Hoffman would completely say. This is where it seems like Sorkin is putting in his own political beliefs at time, at least from the research I did. So some of the stuff Hoffman is saying doesn't seem like it fits his character or even just his actual beliefs back then in the 60s. But Cohen did a great job, and I thought he was definitely believable as Hoffman. Now, Sorkin may have put some of his own political thoughts in this, which is totally fine. Definitely a lot of the moments back then echoes what's happening today. But I also thought Sorkin did a pretty good job on showing how these characters are different in each ways, but they have their own same goal. But it does take a little bit of time to know who these actors are playing and what their purpose is to the event. Now, if you're like me and you didn't live through these moments and you also didn't know much about this event, then the beginning might feel a little overwhelming. It's really heavy on exposition, and they are introducing every single character within the first 5 to 10 minutes. So you have to know who these people are, and then you have to understand what their goal is and what their purpose is for these protests. So it took a little bit of time for me to know who these people were, but once the trial starts and we get to see these characters a little bit more and understand them a little bit better, starts to click for me a little bit. I'm not sure if this would have been a problem for somebody who knew the event or knew anybody that was involved with this, or even if you just do a rewatch. Maybe since you know everybody, you're like, oh, okay, I got this. One decision that Sorkin did that I liked was actually just making the movie about the trial. There wasn't really any build-up leading to the trial other than introducing our characters. If that happened, then that would have been a completely different movie, really. It would have gone on way too long, honestly. Or even the trial itself would have just been shorter. Instead, what Sorkin does to show these protests and the police brutality and stuff, he likes to sprinkle it in, and these edits fit in perfectly with the trial. It keeps the story interesting, and the pacing never really slows down. I also think, if they did show all of the protests and stuff before the trial, then there would have been just a lot of twists and turns that we would have probably just gotten tired of already. When we do see the flashbacks, they do feel pretty tense as the protesters and the police become closer and closer before they clash. There's also some music written by Daniel Pemberton, and it elevates those scenes even more. Again, it feels very theatrical, as if, they're also going to use these scenes for Oscar clips, but for me, it worked out pretty well. Now, the ending is the most theatrical part of the movie, and it's a little bit of a letdown. When they showed the last witness in this movie, it felt like it was very anticlimactic. There's like a little speech that I'm not really sure if it fits that character, and it fades to black, and then we skip to the very end of the trial. That scene could have just gone on a little bit longer. It felt like there was no real conclusion to that scene. It just kind of ends abruptly. Then it just moves on. Now the final scene, which I've heard other people complain about, doesn't feel like an Aaron Sorkin movie. It felt like, at the end of the movie where they got that slow clap and it gets louder and louder and louder and faster. It felt like that. And it felt out of place, and it felt like a parody kind of. And I was just like, oh, that's the ending? There should have been at least like 1 or 2 more scenes between the last witness and the very end of the trial. I'm not sure what they could have shown because, again, I don't know too much about this trial, but I felt like it was just missing something. Maybe it got cut, I don't know. Sorkin's second movie is definitely an improvement. The writing is cleaner and tighter, while the direction and the editing is not as flashy, and it's held back a little bit. The ensemble overall is great and really talented in this movie. Even though some stood out more than others, I felt like no one really disappointed me in this movie. Some of their dialogue and really their monologues, their speeches felt a little exaggerated. Some of the characters could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but it's mostly just because sometimes they feel like caricatures. In general, it's a little too melodramatic and theatrical at times, as if this is just meant to be an Oscar movie. But this is what I expected from Sorkin. He's a good writer. It's just very theatrical and over the top at times. If you're like me, and you don't know too much about this event, it can feel a little overwhelming at times, but Sorkin does a good job on just keeping the story focused on the trial and understanding what these characters' goals are sometimes. It's an easy film to watch, and it never really feels slow, even if the ending is just like kind of abrupt and just doesn't really fit in with the tone. I know we got to see some of Sorkin's political beliefs and a little bit of our characters' political thoughts, but I wish it could have gone a little bit deeper in that and the history in general. But I guess if you want to know more about that, then you should just watch a documentary. I'm sure they tell all of these events way better than Sorkin, and it's just as effective without being over the top. So we'll see how Sorkin does with his next movie. I'm feeling a 7.6 out of 10. Alright, well thank you so much for watching this review. Let me know what you think of the movie if you have seen it. Do you plan on seeing it? You're going to watch it with your family? You're going to recommend it to your parents? Have you lived through the events? I haven't. What's your favorite Sorkin film or show? My favorite Social Network. Let me know what I should review next. I'll definitely get to it eventually. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Thanks for supporting. Make sure you exercise every day, drink your milk, and have a great day.